Dude, that's Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Oh. All right.
We're so bad at this.
The dismount, there's got to be a better way. The dismount on that intro is
hearing the mouse click kills me every time.
It's really good stuff. I'm glad we can make light of it. It's never quite polished, but you know what? This is the content never sleeps. We're here. We're live. We're doing a show. I'll just we're peeling back the curtain a little bit here. It is a full-on fire drill. We've got our guy Brian Stansfield here, currently setting up my camera and lighting arrangement to look like yours, which is taking a huge jump in quality.
Yeah.
So we got that going on. We got a pest control guy coming. So I just moved into the house this last week. The dogs are barking. Everything's happening all at the same time. But yeah, we have golf to talk about, Smylie. So that's what we're going to do. And if you hear if you see a little lighting change, you hear a little bit of extraneous noise in the background, that's just the price of doing business. We're here to talk golf. So
let's play ball.
Let's play. I mean, so we have so much golf to talk about. We have a wild finish, the Travelers. Both I would say off the course and on the course, but it all happened on the course. Just some of it pertained to the actual play in the tournament, and some of it pertained to protesters on the 72nd hole, which we'll get into. We've got KPMG Women's PGA Championship at Sahalee, which looked like my utter nightmare off the tee, just like little 20-yard windows to hit tee shots through. Just true insanity.
Your nightmare? Our nightmare.
Our nightmare. We are the High Yacht Kings. And then we've got a little LIV Golf. I mean, the Nashville scene, kind of a hero's. I mean, we'll give credit where credit's due. It was a hero's welcome for Bryson and a good-looking scene there. And we got some stats from our guy who just kind of hooked it up the last time around. We got more here from Sean Lowry. And then if you stay around long enough, maybe a little bit of recap of the shootout at Old Chatham's Hogan, which, people
are dying to want to know about that.
People are dying to hear about that. But let's start with the Travelers. Let's start with Scottie. I think before we kind of break down the tournament, I mean, just some context on Scottie, right? And there's a couple of tweets that I think are worth reading to just set the table for this conversation. So the first one from No Laying Up, just laying out, this is prior to Scottie actually getting it done, but the 2024 signature event winners, the Century, Chris Kirk, at AT&T Pro-Am at Pebble Beach, Wyndham Clark, at the Genesis at Riviera, Hideki Matsuyama. Then Scottie switches to that spider mallet, and he wins at Bay Hill, and he wins the Players, and he wins the RBC Heritage. And then he takes a week off because his child has arrived and Rory gets a chance to win at Quail Hollow for the Wells Fargo. And then he wins at Memorial, and now he wins at the Travelers. Justin Ray Golf, of course, who's amazing on Twitter and everywhere else, but another great stat. 6 wins in a PGA Tour season before July 1st since 1960. It's been done 3 times. Arnold Palmer in 1962. He got it done by May 14th. Arnold Palmer in 1960. He got it done by June 18th. And now Scottie Scheffler in 2024 gets it done by June 23rd. Last one is from our resident OWGR guru, Nosferatu at VC606 on Twitter. If you split the years in 2 halves, so January to June and then July to December, only 10 times a player's earned more than 400 OWGR points in 1 half year. And 6 is Vijay Singh, 2 through 5, and 7 through 10 are Tiger, and top of the list, Scottie Scheffler. So, I mean, I know we keep talking about, some of the comparisons between Tiger and Scottie, and it feels like, maybe not forced, but just Tiger's greatness was so off the charts, it's hard to compare, but we are starting to really enter that territory. And I'd love to first kind of hear your reflections on, yet again, what Scottie's done. And then maybe we can kind of dig into some comparisons between this year for Scottie and some of Tiger's best years.
I think if Scottie would have won maybe in Houston, maybe in American Express, maybe at the Century, and won the Masters, and then maybe won the Travelers, and maybe another open event, we'd be talking about this totally differently, right? Because you could question the fields, but the fact of the matter is, look what the events he's won. He's beat the best that the PGA Tour has to offer. Is it the best in the world? No, because there are, I mean, we have 2 split tours, but he has beat every single possible PGA Tour player and every single time he's played in a signature event past LA. So it's fun to look back. You know, we've been doing this for a little over a year and a couple months now. And I feel like right from the get-go of when we got started, I got you on Scottie. You know, I got you on this guy. I'm like, dude, you need to be buying stock in this guy because he is unbelievable. And I don't know if I convinced you early on enough because you were somebody who likes to change putters. Maybe you're somebody that loses belief quickly when they change putters there and back. So I kept on trying to give you positivity at the beginning of this year, saying, patience, patience, young Charlie. He's going to figure this out. Get him to Bermuda Greens. Let his work with Phil Kenyon to continue to pay off. And it's been fun to watch because this year, in comparison to last year, let's just talk about his putting routine because that was the big thing that we talked about of the things that he needed to change was his putting. Last year, Ted Scott always reading putts, and every time he missed a putt, he would just be looking at Ted and just this, like, I think it was a frustration that it's like I feel like I'm making good putts, but I'm not making anything. And then we started to see some really bad putts where you're like, okay, this technique is off. And then he changes putters at the Ryder Cup. And then fast forward now working with Phil Kenyon, Ted Scott's not reading putts, realizes he's a good green reader, just practices green reading. And what do you know? One of the hardest workers and the most talented players in the world now is making a lot of putts. And if he putts well, like we've documented, he wins.
Well, it's funny because I think the turn in our minds was you're watching the same movie every week last year. And the movie always ended the same way where this guy hits the ball better than anybody in the field and he gets on the greens and he loses a ton of strokes and he either narrowly misses, always finished top 10, was a top 10 machine, but narrowly misses out on winning the tournament. And now we're watching the same movie again. It's just that he's fixed one thing and the movie always ends with Scottie winning. And it's with some exceptions, of course. I mean, the U.S. Open was, I mean, that one is, will forever. I'd love to do like a full unpack on that one at some point in time, like digging into the stats there and everything, because I think that one it intrigues me for a number of reasons. It was putting on a Bermuda surface, which kind of to your point, at the beginning of the year when I was, slamming the panic button as a putter tinkerer and someone who, needs to kind of see results quickly, you were saying just get him to Bermuda and he's going to be fine. And he was. So that one is, was an interesting one to me. I think he's spoken. He even said this week, just talking about how he didn't like maybe the unpredictability of Pinehurst and some of those native areas, and some of the whether you do get penalized or don't get penalized off the tee. That's a subject for another day. But I think here talking about yet another signature event win for Scottie Scheffler, and looking at, let's do the Tiger comparisons, man. I mean, I think we're at this point in time, and you and I were texting on the side leading into this about comparing this year for Scottie Scheffler to 2000 for Tiger Woods. And the reason we're doing that is because on the broadcast yesterday, there's a graphic that was thrown up, most wins in a season. So 9 wins in a season, and this is in the last 40 years on the PGA Tour, has been done twice. Vijay Singh in 2004, Tiger in 2000. 8 wins in a season has been done twice, both by Tiger Woods, 1999 and 2006. 7 wins in a season has been done once, Tiger Woods in 2007. And 6 wins in a season is now 3 guys, Tiger Woods in 2005 and 2009, Nick Price in 1994, and Scottie Scheffler in 2024 with a lot of events remaining. So let's look at that. Let's look at that Tiger 2000 season and compare it to Scottie in 2024. So Tiger played 20 times in 2000 and won 9 of those events, which is absurd. I mean, again, it's like look at these stats. Is one of our commenters in here says Scottie's on X Games mode, and I think if it's Flagrant One says Scottie's on X Games mode, which I love because it's almost like he has like a Game Shark and he's put some sort of cheat code in, and that was very much what Tiger did in 2000 as well. But so Scottie's played 15 times this season and won 6 times, so he needs to win 3 events in his next 5 starts to match what Tiger did in 2000. So Tiger's results in 2000, he wins at what is now the Century in Hawaii. He wins the AT&T Pro-Am. He won at Bay Hill, finished 5th at the Masters, won the Memorial, won the U.S. Open, won the Open Championship, won the PGA Championship, won the World Golf Championships NEC Invitational, won the Bell Canadian Open, and won the World Golf Championships EMC World Cup. Scottie's wins this year are the Arnold Palmer Invitational, of course, at Bay Hill, the Players Championship, the Masters, RBC Heritage, the Memorial, and the Travelers Championship.
Unbelievable. And those events are just, it's hard to compare to year 2000 to 2024 because so much has changed with the schedule and the fields, and it's difficult to compare the talent in 2000 to the talent in 2024. So, but I think you can compare wins, right? Like it's hard to argue guys winning at the end of the week. But man, I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scottie's ability to make shots on a Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. He was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss-hit it. So when I think about the Travelers Championship, or I think about any event I've watched this year from Scottie, when have we seen him hit a shot where like, that's weird? Tiger the same way. And I think that's, to me, is the best comparison you can possibly make, and the best compliment you can ever give is that on a Sunday afternoon when it's all on the line, that your game looks exactly the same as it looked on a Thursday.
Yeah, that reminds me of something you said a while back following him around. This might have been at Bay Hill or might have been at the Players. I'm not sure which, but just that he just is always missing on the right side of the flag stick, and it's always 20 feet or less. And it's just so casual. And I think that's, the thing that we remember about Tiger. I mean, we remember all of his shots with a ton of flair and things like that, but actually, when you kind of get down to it, he was a fairly conservative player a lot of times. And he could afford to do that because he just had more length than guys, and he could just wait it out. And all these other guys who had to kind of play an aggressive game to try to keep up with him eventually make mistakes and fall off, and then he's there at the end, and he can go out and win the golf tournament. And then when he needed to pull off a ridiculous shot like we saw at the Canadian Open and a number of other places, he had the toolkit to do that. And Scottie has that same toolkit as well, but it does look so... It looks so casual yesterday. I think that was the interesting thing to me, was just watching Tom Kim, who we'll get into, play great, but you could kind of see the pressure getting to him down the stretch with some of his putts, putt on 16 and putt on 17. His routine really kind of slowed up in a lot of ways. And Scottie's out there laughing with Ted Scott. And you can be in that mode when you've won a zillion times. When this is your 6th win of the year. But it's that thing strikes me the same way as you. It just looks very comfortable for him all the time.
Yeah, there's an art to winning. We've talked about learning how to win, and that it's a learned skill, and the more times you do it, the easier it gets. And when I saw Tom Kim yesterday, there was definitely, he didn't look the same as he probably would look on a Thursday. He was standing over the ball much longer. I don't know if he realized he was, and maybe he has been standing over the ball this long, but he definitely does need to quicken it up a bit. My goodness. That was one thing that I was like, man, I've missed this one. But man, I think with Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler, when you compare the two, Tiger Woods would intimidate you with his physical self, just his presence, his ability to hit golf shots and wear you out and know he's not going to make a mistake. And how do we compare that to what we saw at the Travelers Championship with what turned out to be a duel between Tom Kim and Scottie Scheffler down the stretch? just like you were saying, Scottie's laughing it up, and so is Tom Kim. They're obvious friends, but from my perspective, I I didn't really I didn't like that. I would have rather have seen Tom just act like he didn't know Scottie Scheffler and just I know he celebrated awesome on the 18th hole, and that's the type of dog that Tom Kim can be. We've seen that at the President's Cup. And I know these guys are friends, but part of me as somebody who's watching on TV, I want these guys to like they could be best friends in the world, but I want them to act like they hate each other in the moment, right? Like that's what makes competitive good TV.
It is a really interesting one because I thought about this watching them come down the stretch, and you can't change the way Tom Kim is, just this love. I mean, it's the reason why we love him so much, right? He's this sort of like he's this teddy bear that is just delighted to be on tour at the age he is, playing as well as he is, making all these friends. And you also can't change the nature of their relationship where I don't know if Tom would classify Scottie as a mentor or how Scottie thinks about it, but really in a lot of ways, Scottie's taken Tom under his wing, as has Jordan, right? Some of those guys in that Dallas area, that they have kind of brought him along and taught him some things, and he's picked up, a lot of shots and a lot of wherewithal about how to, succeed on the PGA Tour from those guys. So it's kind of hard to ice out a guy like that, maybe. But I will say, I mean, we hear it all the time with Scottie Scheffler, where I believe it's maybe Sam Burns telling this story of like, this is a guy that is the friendliest, nicest guy in the world. Mm-hmm. And then you're playing what you think is a friendly game of ping pong, and the guy wants to cut your throat. I mean, he's out for blood. And, I think that is to a point, to a certain degree. Yeah. I'd like to see more of that from Tom, almost like that President's Cup version of him that is just like, I'm not afraid of this moment. I'm going to go out and seize it and take it. And I wonder for Tom, if it's almost like he's now been out there long enough to where he's thinking about it a little bit too much. It's like he's taking in all this information.
I disagree a little bit there.
Really? Because I mean, I guess that's where my head went with his time of routine and things like that. Where before he had this sort of carefree nature, and now it's like they said on the broadcast. Trevor Immelman noted it. It's like, we got to kind of speed this thing up, not just not from a pace of play perspective, as much from a competitive standpoint. Like that's probably not beneficial to him playing good golf when he's taking that long.
He's the type of player that only likes to go when he feels like, I know exactly what I'm doing. There's no doubt, and that's why him and Paul Tesori are working so well together now. It's why him and Joe Scavern worked so well together, winning a couple times together. And when I watched him with the first week that they caddied for, I believe it was one of the first weeks Joe caddied for Tom Kim, was in Vegas. And I thought the same thing. It's like, man, he's really indecisive or only really likes to go when he knows exactly what the decision is. So there is an element of, okay, can we find a way to speed this up? But I also commend a guy for only going when he's ready. But I think it's the over the ball is what the issue is. I think because it looks like there's the screen is frozen, right? We're sitting here watching our guy. It's like, oh man, is it raining outside? Is it a thunderstorm? Like, are we frozen? Because that's what it feels like.
Let me go check my router.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, yeah. I think too, it's interesting. This is another thing Trevor said. Curious your thoughts on this, is that if you're going to take that long, you can't go from a dead stop. Like we see it all the time with Patrick Cantlay. He's got that little shuffle on the green. So then when he gets ready to trigger, it's not like he's from a dead stop. Whereas Tom is very much, to your point, it's frozen. It's like, what's going on here? And
I've been there in that situation where I haven't had any movement. And I start gripping it tighter. Yes. I get more tense. How are you supposed to have any rhythm doing that? But he does. So good on him, man.
Big putt on 18 after everything that went on there. And this is probably the part of the show where we should discuss what happened, because you were there on site.
Yeah.
What does his whole thing go down? And
I was actually watching it from the airport, but I can give you my full breakdown.
Yeah. Please take it away.
All right. So we've had plenty of TV compound meetings with officials from whether it be the PGA Tour or the R&A, and there's been plenty of other sporting events where you see protesters interrupt the field of play. And so we've always talked about like, hey, how do we handle it? I think there's always been a plan from a directing standpoint, from the production side of, hey, we're gonna definitely get wide here and take the highest angle to try not to let these idiots have any highlight to whatever their cause is. Like, just get it out, make sure these guys get safe. And so immediately when I watched, I was like, oh my God, this is what's happening. And I have like a couple questions about it all, because how do you get smoke bombs into a golf tournament? Because like I thought the security was really good at this event, because you had to go through a bunch of different things. It's wild to me that you can get something like that through. I'm not sure how that doesn't get picked up on the security stuff, but man, if I was there and had an opportunity, I would have loved to lay somebody's ass out. I mean, that would have been a dream. Just these freaking idiots, man. Like, what are you doing? It just pissed me off.
You know what?
I'm gonna fill up my gas tank here in a minute.
Yeah,
right when I get done here, I'm gonna fill up my gas tank.
Yeah, well, you know what? Because there are two different ways to approach this. In terms of sentiment, I'm in the same place as you are. The tact I'm going to take is, this is exactly what they want. They want us talking about this because then they want people to go look it up and you know, whatever. I'm not going to give them another thought of airtime. I mean, well, I think.
Can you give me a punishment? Like, what is punishment for you? Because I got an idea.
Well, yours. Well, I'm not going to steal your idea. I want you to say on air what you said in text yesterday, which was hilarious.
I had a couple different ideas. I thought one was put all 5 of them on the Travelers umbrella logo in the middle of the lake and banish them until the Travelers the following year. And we'll send over a little, some Cheetos every now and then.
One Cheeto.
Yeah.
One Cheeto a day.
One Cheeto a day for all 5. And we'll see them next year. And we'll see if they're going to have the energy to go onto the green again.
Let's see. I mean, I just, in a bigger picture thought, and this is maybe slightly getting us off the rails, like all these organizations, man, it's not even about the actual cause they're trying to affect change in. It's about drumming up a bunch of interest and look at me and all this type of stuff. And you can be investing actual time and resources in affecting change. But no, we're going to throw chalk on the greens at TPC River Highlands. Like, great work, guys. I really hope you're achieving your goal. So anyway.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine me running out there and just decking a dude? How sick that would be.
I mean,
that would be awesome.
That'd be an all-time, right? I think you tweeted about it too. A great tackle by the guy who got the protester closest to the pin. It was like it would not have been roughing the passer. Like it was perfect form tackle. Did not leave with the crown of his helmet.
Should have.
Did not fall on the passer. Like it was so perfectly executed. I think I would have ran up and got a little steel-toed boot in there, but listen, it is what it is.
Would you have gone high or gone low on the tackle? Because I think the best one you could have done is they're just running straight and they don't see you, and it's the old blind side, upper hit, but you come in from an angle from the side and just totally hit him that way. That's where I would go.
Yeah, I think you could do the crack block. I mean, we should really. I see Jackson in the comments here, who's does a ton of amazing production stuff for us. This guy actually played strong safety at North Dakota State, so we need Jackson to chime in here with what he would have done. But I feel like it's either a cut block or, to your point, it's just go ahead and get your 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty and just go straight into the head. Anyway, the part of this I do want to ask you about, as it pertains to the competition, is something you noted about they had to recut a pin for the playoffs. Like, I can't remember the last time something like that's happened, which is just absurd. So you were talking about the way that changed the nature of the playoff.
It did.
So what were your thoughts there?
I'd be very upset this morning if I was Paul Tesori and Tom Kim. Because this front right hole location is, I think, the most difficult hole location on that green. We've seen them use that pin before, and when it gets downwind, you really, for Scottie, can't hit driver off that tee because you get on the downslope and you can't get enough height on the shot because it lands on a bit of a downslope. It takes a big kick forward. I know the greens are softer, but I don't think you could have gotten it closer than 10 feet unless you brought, you would have had it landed right on top of the bunker. And for Tom Kim, he's I would say an octave and a half lower ball flight than Scottie Scheffler. So Scottie's like one level up, one level and a half up on iron shots. So Scottie smartly hits 3-wood off the tee to give himself something that he can hit up in the air and high. And Tom Kim pushes it up. And I thought Colt did a great job on the ground there. So it was 111 yards. He's got a lob wedge. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh, man. And, like, he's got to hit this. And Colt said, the wind's laying down. I was like, oh, boy. Because now, like, you can't mishit it at all. Or if you get it offline by a yard, it's going in that bunker. And it's such a difficult up and down. Of course, that's what happens. Plugs, game over. If that whole location would have been exactly where it was during regulation, Tom Kim's making birdie. He's going to continue to make birdie.
I mean, he flagged his approach the first time around.
He's making birdie. And I just think it was so frustrating for whether Tom realizes it or not. I think right away the advantage went to Scottie Scheffler. I was like, this thing's over. I never felt like Tom was winning the playoff when that whole location got switched to the front right.
Yeah, it's a shame that whole thing impacted in the way that it did. I mean, it was watching it in regulation and the way Tom went at that pin was like, wow, this is, that took some serious stones. And then after all that happened, still making that birdie putt, hugely commendable. And then when he talked to Colt after the round, I thought it was cool just to, you could be really dejected after a loss like that, but he's like, I'm proud of what I did this week. There was some fun stuff the PGA Tour put on their social channels of Meredith greeting Tom with Bennett. And
I mean, it's great. Like, listen, how do you not love Tom Kim, right? I think if it was me, I just want to see a little bit more dog, like, down the stretch with Tom, like, just in the way he's walking and carrying himself. Like, man, because you have to wonder, like, the putt he hit on 16 was so bad. Tough. It was real bad.
You got to get that to the hole.
And 17 wasn't very good either. Makes a huge putt on 18, so all the credit to him, just stepping up in a huge theater and draining a putt like that. But I just want to see a little bit more dog from Tom and just how he carries himself on Sunday. And listen, he hasn't been there in a bit. He's a guy who's had a really, really tough first half of the year, and we've seen signs that this guy's starting to play better golf. And a guy that, honestly, we probably could have mentioned a little bit more heading into this week being a really good golf course fit for Tom Kim at the Travelers. And as soon as he played well after the first round, I was like, God, I'm kicking myself for not mentioning to you guys on the pod for a guy he kind of found his way on the leaderboard at Memorial. He did the same at the U.S. Open. So he's been finding himself in the leaderboard. So, obviously, really, it's good when Tom Kim's playing well because he is a very likable dude, easy to root for. But I do feel bad for him in the fact that I feel like it was a tough shake. The protesters affected the outcome potentially of him having a better look for birdie in the playoff hole.
Well, we are entering the Tom Kim portion of the calendar, right? Like, I mean,
it is, right? Yeah, good point. Yeah.
It's Tom Kim season, man. I mean, he plays great at the Scottish Open. He plays great at the Open Championship. At least played great last year. And then when we kind of start getting into July, August, like it is a time of the year when he plays well. So maybe this is one of those things where he just needed a little bit of this to get him going, and we could see some good performances. Like I kind of love Tom at the Scottish Open when we get there.
Yeah, he's won there.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
no, he finished second.
He finished second. He was in that final pairing last year. Yeah, it was him and Rory. And
I was watching.
Yeah, I mean it's I think it sets up nice for him to kind of play well in some of these events overseas, and then kind of roll that into the FedEx Cup playoffs.
One quick stat on Tom Kim, our guy Matt Gannon, who was out.
Love Matt.
I've seen him at 3 or 4 events this year. If you're a guy that likes to gamble on golf, he's very, very, like, he goes, does his homework, really good in the stats department. He put out a good tweet with Tom Kim just saying that he hit 48 of 56 fairways, 66 of 72 greens, 100% in scrambling, birdies second, bogeys least, lost. I just thought that was a really good summary of, man, sometimes you can play really good golf and not win on the PGA Tour. So shame on me for even mentioning that Tom Kim didn't have the dog down the stretch when he clearly was unbelievable this week. So just give me just I just want somebody to try to out intimidate Scottie Scheffler down the stretch. I think that's what I'm looking for, is just the guy to be like just fist pumping right in Scottie's face, and just like I want to see the competitive animal coming out of Scottie more than I do other people. Does that make sense?
Oh,
100%.
100%.
I want
Yeah.
Scottie to look like Tiger, where he's
Yes.
just like, all right, come on, let's go.
He needs a proper foil. I mean, I'm racking my brain this year. It's like, what's the closest we've really seen in his group? Steven Yeager? That's kind of it, right? I mean, I think some of those, because he came from behind at
He puts it to sleep, man. He's put a lot of these events to bed.
just early. I wonder, what are your thoughts on just the way TPC River Highlands played this week? Because it was ball in hand. Was it all 4 days, or was it just 3 or 4 days? I know it was on Sunday. It was when Cam Young shot his 59. With weather anticipated, there's some weather kind of intermittently off and on throughout the week. I know last year there was talk of, after the record scoring we saw with Keegan Bradley's win, how can they toughen this place up? And there wasn't a ton of additional teeth, it seemed like, for this course this year. It's one of those things. It's like, I think we like to knee-jerk react to certain venues and saying, I mean, I saw some pretty asinine takes with relation to the quality of Cam Young's 59. I mean, 59's a 59. Like, let's just, let's not try to discredit that. But, it's, I mean, obviously, I think it's a different conversation than Valhalla. Like, that's a major. You probably want that setup to be maybe a little bit tougher in retrospect. I don't mind this entirely, especially the week after, just grinding back to back with the setup at the Memorial and the setup, Pinehurst. Any thoughts on what we saw this week and the parts of it that are maybe just out of everyone's control because just the weather's the weather?
It's a really good golf course. It's a really good golf course. I love the layout. It just isn't long enough. It just isn't long enough. We have, I think, 45% of the shots out there are from 145 yards and in. It's too many wedges. It is. And I think you give guys soft greens and no wind for 3 straight days. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how fast the greens are. They were, I believe, about 12.5, 13 on the stem, which is tour speed typically. Like, that's I wouldn't careful speed is the best way to describe it. And the rough was 4 to 5 inches of rough. So I think when people talk about the Travelers Championship and that it's a really easy track, well, go put a scratch player on this golf course. I don't think it's just as simple and as easy as we're making it out to be. These guys are really good. You give them a dartboard and you give them flags that they don't have to aim away from. It's just not that difficult, and maybe a scratch player could go play really well out there in a tournament. I don't know, but you can make an argument that a golf course like this could use a bit of rollback. I go back and forth on the whole rollback thing. I don't want to get into that right now, but it's definitely not difficult.
Right.
The golf course.
Well, I just think it's, and you've said this a number of times, you give tour pros ball in hand, soft conditions. Like, it's just it's not going to be. I think what happens then is the scoring increases exponentially. It goes from where it could be a couple guys low to like everybody's low, and then everyone's slamming the panic button saying, "Oh, we need to change everything." If the weather conditions are a little different, I still think they score this course because, to your point, it's the length just isn't there. But I don't think they score the way they do, where everyone's saying this is ridiculous and we have to change everything in a rollback. I mean, I think that there are. It's what we're seeing more and more is the venues that would benefit from it, and we're also seeing venues that have other ways to protect themselves. Like much in the way that Pinehurst did last week. There are a lot of ways to kind of defend that course where, guys, there's still a lot of wedges into those greens, but good luck holding some of them, and you get a certain pin location, a firmness, and it is a tough scene. So, I thought that was interesting. Just looking at the scoring and some of the takes we saw. Not to discredit Cam Young or anyone this week, but that's the way it goes when the conditions are like that. So,
well, here's the thing: if you want to make the conditions really difficult and you want to go play a harder golf course, you just want to make it easier for Scottie to win. Or do you want to make it a place like this, which bunches in the field? You had 6 dudes within 2 shots of the lead with like 3 holes left. And I think it makes for really good television and really good storylines. So there's 2 ways you look at it: make the course really hard, make it easier for Scottie to win, or make Scottie have to really earn it and putt his way to winning.
Yeah,
right.
I absolutely agreed. I mean, I think that's, and I think the other thing that's interesting along these lines is, what has the complaint been at some of these signature events, like most notably Wells Fargo? It's that there aren't enough players in the field. And so you have one guy just run away, and there's not enough bunching at the top where guys can make a run at it. And we did not see that this week. So take whatever issue you want to with the absolute numbers the scores ended up at, but what you did have was a very exciting finish with a lot of guys potentially in play. Yeah. And I think that's all you can really ask for. I mean, it was such a cool atmosphere there. That sort of amphitheater on 18, and just so one of those guys was in contention. Is do you care to talk about what happened to your one and done pick, Patrick Cantlay, the hex I threw on him?
Do you want to talk about it? Because like I'm still a little PO'd about it.
This is Smylie Show family. Everyone's involved here, so we're peeling back the curtain. I sent a group text to Smylie, Jackson, myself, saying, hey, just taking a check in on our one and done picks. We might want to prep some clips. Patrick Cantlay's tied for the lead. Brian Harmon's a few shots out the lead. Maybe want to get something ready. And at that point, I think Cantlay missed a very makeable birdie putt, and then
at 15, he had an easy up and out at 15, 7-footer, misses, and that was to take the lead outright at 20. He needed a birdie every hole coming in, probably, or just actually 3 out of the last 4, and then 16 absolutely hits a nuke long left over the green, and it was like Charlie, what the hell, man? You talked to my golf ball when it still was rolling, and then you talk about my one and done picks when they're still playing. Just nobody move, freeze.
I will. Okay, I can commit to this. In the future, I'm just gonna know that Jackson's on top of it, and he's gonna get the clip cut. I don't need to say anything, but I'm just trying to do a good job as a producer, making sure all of our bases are covered.
It was tough.
And by the way, Patrick covered all the bases on 16 by hitting that home run right after.
A lot of people are making some good points about. I want to get to David Stewart and Ruben Roca's comments. One, David said he didn't mind the leaderboard and that he had heard that Travelers had made some changes to make the golf course more difficult. And I would agree. They did make some changes to make the golf course more difficult. Problem is, when you have 2 inches of rain over the weekend and some soft conditions and no wind, it doesn't matter like how they didn't stretch the golf course any really further. The changes they made were some different angles on some tee shots, narrowed in the 6th fairway, which is a par 5, added some fescue on that hole. That probably didn't make too much of a difference. Maybe just made the drive just maybe 0.2 harder from a scoring perspective, but nothing just crazy. They didn't make anything too harder. All the green surfaces stayed relatively the same, except the 11th hole shrunk that green. I think that hole played beautifully this week. One of my favorite holes on the PGA Tour now, that 11th hole. It's become a really awesome par 3, the way they've shrunk that green up. And then Ruben had said he was happy about the leaderboard and he was happy there wasn't a blowout. So I'm kind of with, if Scottie can win golf tournaments with a bunch leaderboard, that's good for golf.
Yeah.
And I think the 2 things that I want to kind of get to, Charlie, I'm not trying to get too far off topic here with Scottie, is that I was talking with Shane Lowry in the airport, and he was telling me that these guys are so pumped that Scottie's winning. The more Scottie wins, the better it is for everybody in the top 30 in the FedEx Cup. They don't want anybody winning from behind them to jump them, because they just think if Scottie just gobbles up all the points that are being offered, that's good for them. So I thought that was really interesting just from a player's perspective. I just wasn't in the mind of somebody who's in the top 30 right now in the Tour Championship, or the top 50 right now in the FedEx Cup, with only 7 weeks before the playoffs. That to me was something I had not thought of too much about. And he also said, it's like, I mean, we're going to get to the Tour Championship. He's only got a 2-shot lead. So, and that to me, what a absolute shit show travesty this is going to be when Scottie Scheffler loses the Tour Championship. when he wins 8 times or 9 times this year and has one week where he just doesn't play that well.
Right. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago with that kind of showdown with Rory on Sunday. Now that was a different time and a different putter. In fact, some might point to that as like when the putter struggle started originally with his blade and kind of went through a bunch of iterations. He actually, people kind of forget this. I think he used a spider mallet in at least the first 2 playoff events last year. I'm not sure if he went back to the blade at Eastlake, but it will be wild if that happens. It'll be selfishly fun for us to talk about because it'll be a hilarious storyline. But
I don't want him to win. You know why? Because it's going to incite change. We want the playoffs to change.
Yes,
we want the Tour Championship to change format. So if it means Scottie Scheffler not winning the Tour Championship, by all means, blow it up. I just want the playoffs to be way more exciting than the way that they currently are.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because I don't know what you do there. I mean, because in a sense it is, if you were handicapping it based off of the way he's played this year, I mean, you come in with like a 20-shot lead and there'd be no excitement because it'll already be over. So it's like, do you want to do it off of merit or do you want to do it off of what's the most exciting version of it? Like, I don't know what the solve is there, but I do know that if he doesn't win after the year he's had, there will have to be some sort of change. This is a tweet from @GolfMonthly, who said just kind of along these lines, just check in on where Scottie is monetarily thus far. Imagine a pro golfer who won 6 PGA Tour titles, including the Masters, with on-course earnings of $28 million, some career. That's the first half of Scottie Scheffler's 2024. I forget where I saw it, but like in projecting the rest of the season, Scottie could get to like $60 million in on-course earnings if he wins the Tour Championship and gets that bonus. In 1 year.
I was kind of thinking about this in the car leaving Travelers, wondering, I wonder what Scottie is going to like buy first, because he probably doesn't even know how much money he even has. He probably just has been just kind of chilling, just hanging out, probably in this whatever house in Dallas. And now I think he needs to be like, we're buying a boat. Or you got to do something crazy, right? Like, if you have all that money, like, what are you going to do with it, right? Like, got to do something fun.
I mean, you have to. I mean, I wonder what, he doesn't strike me as the type that has like some extravagant tastes. You know what I mean? It just kind of feels like, because for a while, I remember he was driving like that old beat up Suburban. I imagine at this point he's upgraded that, but many of us drive old beat up cars. It's not just Scottie. It's myself, my 2014 Prius. It's a lot of people saying that's the way to go. So can we, unless there's other items you want to hit here, I think it's worth kind of touching on the LIV scene this week. I mean, I saw a lot of the highlights, and it seemed like it was like, again, like, let's give credit where credit's due. Bryson got a hero's welcome.
The only thing before we flip to LIV,
sure.
If there's two knots I want to tie, it's
sure.
We need to talk about Cam Young's 59.
Yeah,
like just a little bit more in depth than passing, and Ludvig Aberg. I mean, losing strokes on the green on Saturday is still shooting 62. And anytime I can push back LIV talk for just another like 5 minutes, I'm actually cool with it.
I mean, I think the thing about Cam Young is, I mean, what he did was tremendous. It doesn't sit right with me, some of the takes I saw in relation to Cam Young of like, we need to, the equipment, this is evidence that the equipment needs to be changed and this and that. It's like, dude, he's just playing a short golf course with the ball in hand and it's soft. Like, now, does that impact what he shot to a certain degree? Yes, of course it does. But it's still, you have to go, hit the ball 59 times and then pick it up out of the cup on the 18th hole and walk off the green. I mean, that's an unreal accomplishment.
Yeah, I thought Cam making that putt on 18 was kind of the moment of, we needed Cam Young to just step up to do something. If it's 59, so be it. We just wanted to see something out of Cam Young that matched what his potential and his talent and what we know we can be. Just the glimpse that we saw a couple years back, finishing second at the Open Championship, and a player that just seemed like he was about to light the world on fire with how good he was going to be, and has definitely taken his lumps over the last year. And it hasn't been poor golf. It's just hasn't necessarily gotten himself in contention, and he's had issues with The putter, for the most part, I would say has been a big problem, and then just some inconsistent weeks. But Cam Young's a player that, golly, just when you look at it, it's just drop dead talent, man. It's just a player that doesn't necessarily have like a ton of charisma. Not a guy that is just eating up the press conferences and just is a great interview by any means. He's just a dude that's really good at golf. He's chill. 3 kids now. Just kind of goes to work, and and I'll say that would to me was a really big moment for Cam. Just like, hey, I can do this. Like I just made a putt that I had to make. So for Cam Young, why don't we just watch out for him the rest of the year? Maybe this is going to propel him to some bigger and better things, whether it's winning his first PGA Tour event, or let's say it's potentially contending at the Open Championship, or maybe
he's played well,
or maybe a run at the playoffs. Who knows? That wouldn't surprise me at all either. 3 really good weeks in a row, and maybe you have a Billy Horschel type of finish where he goes and wins a Tour Championship. So I just want to say with Cam, let's just commend him going and accomplishing something, shooting a 59, the 13th in the Tour's history. I know the golf course, like you mentioned, soft and easy, but still, give the credit where it's due. It was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the thing that is ironic is, like, isn't it the most Cam Young thing in the world to, like, do it at one place where that probably doesn't win you the golf tournament? You know, should have been his first PGA Tour win, but you're at a place where everybody's going deep and you got to do a little bit more. And he went out and, you know, birdied his first 4 holes on Sunday, and you're thinking he's going to go out and do it again. He's going to win this thing outright. But, I mean, I think it's a guy that played great a couple years ago in that final round of the 2022 Open, paired with Cam Smith. Ended up finishing second. A lot of people forget that. I think it was that Cam Smith Rory race. He snuck in there and got solo second.
Yeah.
And so I similar to Tom Kim fashion, it's like I'm on Cam Young alert now. Like, I think he could really kind of pick it up in July and heading into the Tour Championship and all that in August.
What'd you shoot on the weekend? I shot 59.66. How many did you win by? Well, I finished 9th. It's like, what do you mean you finished 9th?
Unreal. And then Ludvig, I mean, briefly, I mean, I just...
Briefly, we have to touch on it because it's a beautiful stat.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, you know, give it to us.
So I saw that Ludvig shot 62 on Saturday, the same day that Cameron Young shot 59, and he lost strokes that day on the greens.
He was...
I didn't know that was possible to shoot 62 and lose strokes to the field on the putting green.
He was first in strokes gained approach. He was second strokes gained tee to green. He was 9th in strokes gained around the green, 11th in strokes gained off the tee, and 38th in putting. He was just ever so slightly negative 0.3 strokes, but everywhere else, I mean, just absurdly good.
It had to be said. So Ludvig having a good week. I mean, that's another player that had a good week. Also, shout out to JT had a good week. I mean, I know Travelers is kind of his spot. He plays well all the time there. But I think with just quickly touching on JT, that was another, like, he's had plenty of top 5s. So just got to get the consistency in the majors. Maybe take a little pressure off himself at the majors would be find a way to kind of just get his stuff a little tighter. The other player too wanted to touch on was Tony Finau.
Yeah.
That's the only other guy we haven't talked about. For a guy that, you know, gets himself in contention, he gets 20 under, gets the 16th hole, and hits a shot that doesn't make any sense. I mean, it was 20 yards short, 20 yards right in the water, a thin heel, in a moment where I felt like he was about to go and find himself in the playoff at the end of the day, and ends up making double bogey and ends up in the, you know, finish top 5. But still, that's like the difference to me. And when we talk about Scottie Scheffler, we talk about Tony Finau. I would say that if you had to pick an iron player on the PGA Tour, I would pick Scottie first. I would take Tony Finau second. But as we talked about earlier, winning is an art, and being able to hit clutch shots on a Sunday afternoon when you have to have them and make it look like it's easy and it's something that you've been doing all week, and that you just don't have that occasional mishit. I know he got a weird gust of wind, but still, when do we ever see Scottie Scheffler hit a shot like Tony Finau hit there on the 16th hole? I know we got gusted, but it's still kind of a inexcusable shot in that moment. I know it's a tough flag. He hits a draw, which you would think would fit his eye. I just think that Tony Finau, I mean, the guy's so good at finishing top 10. Same with Tommy Fleetwood, both really good at finishing top 10. But man, you got to think, similar to Cam Young, just being able to win golf tournaments and close the deal and hit the shots down the stretch to go and take it and win the golf tournament. That was not a big moment for Tony on 16, for a guy that I'm totally buying stock on.
Oh yeah, you've said a number of times, just his strokes gain approach numbers are just off the charts. An unbelievable iron player. I think that with Tony, I don't want to put him in the. I think he's approaching the same clutch gene question that I was having with Xander. It's like he's won on tour, but the profile of events he's won, I'd really like to see him. And this would have been a great step in the right direction. Obviously not a major, coming off a major week, so maybe guys are lacking a little bit of energy and stuff like that. But a signature event, this would have been a really big win for him, and he definitely had a chance down the stretch. And so you just kind of, it's a tough shot that leads to a big number. But would have liked to see him been around it, maybe in that playoff. Would have been really interesting to see how he would have reacted in that a three-way playoff with Tom and Scottie would have been. A good test of like, where is Tony Finau's game at in these moments?
Yeah, totally. And you actually just made a good point about guys being tired of the Travelers. Every single player, family member, support team, everybody just talked about how wiped they've been. The Memorial, US Open, Travelers. Let's learn from that. And I think we already have when we saw the date of Jack's event being changed, moving up, not being tied and right next to the US Open. That to me is a win for the players, because everybody I saw this week were just like zombies at the beginning of the week.
100%. I found that very interesting. Yeah, thank goodness you're finally at home, can relax a little bit. Yeah, I mean that one, I thought it was interesting, the comments Jack made, right around the change, where he's saying, like, I wouldn't play the week before a major, so why would I be asking guys to do it at my tournament? And especially when the setup is the way it is, the Memorial, you got to wonder if maybe that had a little bit to do with the way Scottie performed at Pinehurst. It just, man, it takes a lot to do back-to-back weeks you perform in that sort of setting. So, okay, so here's what I got for you on the LIV front. All right, I want to talk Bryson, but first, Sean Laurie just sends me just the best LIV research. It's just so in the weeds. I love it. And the section of this research that I love, it's my favorite thing about this, is along the lines of what Mackenzie Hughes hit you with on the podcast from last week. It's a trivia question. Can you name the original Crushers, the original iteration of Bryson's team from the LIV UK event, the London event, when the whole thing started? Are you able to name the 4 players on this team? It's dang near impossible.
Charles Howell and Anirban Lahiri were not on that team.
Correct.
Golly, that is going to be so difficult. Oh, man, because I'm trying to remember who his 4th is right now. Because this week it was John Catlin, which is...
Right. Played good.
Yeah, he played great. He's a player that was on the Korn Ferry when I was playing. So good to see him playing well. Yeah. That was like the first storyline they've actually had that was interesting.
Yes.
So, like John Catlin being in contention, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I would love to just take like a guess and a rip at this, but I'm struggling just to come up with players. I got nothing, dude.
Okay, so here's what it is. This is
nothing.
Peter Uihlein.
Really?
Richard Bland.
What?
Travis Smith. Vachara Kongwatmai. I might have just butchered that name.
Wait, did they have 5 on the team?
No, it was just Bryson had not gone yet.
Oh.
Remember, that was in the wake of the whole, like, hey, we're staying on tour because all the stuff got leaked after Phil.
Right.
And so they had like the intro group, and he was not part of it, and then he went after that. So I mean, I had a good laugh at that, and thank you to Sean for sending over the research. I think we gotta tip our cap when it's deserved. I mean, I think I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, it seems like we're close to an agreement between the PIF and the PGA Tour and bringing some of this stuff together. And it seems like they're being very careful with how they're rolling that out because they don't want to repeat what happened around June 6th, where the details are wrong, the phrasing was wrong, the players weren't properly notified as to what it was going to look like. So they're being very careful about how they're rolling this out. But it seems like we're close to that, and I think that it's things like what you saw this week in Nashville in terms of fan interest and reception for a major winner, and his first week back, a guy that's gained a ton in the way of fan support after the way he behaved at Pinehurst, and Bryson DeChambeau. It's something to kind of keep tabs on and keep an eye on it and say, hey, look, well done, Liv. Like, not all of them are like this. There are a lot that are sparsely attended. There are a lot that happen in the middle of the night. Like, I think that could have been the worst thing possible if they went from U.S. Open to like Singapore, where we can't even see it, and the national champion doesn't get to get his due. But it was in the United States, in Nashville, and Bryson got to kind of get a little bit of kudos for what he did, and I thought that was it was notable, significant.
I mean, Nashville's a hot pocket. It's a really good place to potentially have a big time level golf tournament. It seems like LIV Golf fits really well with Nashville as well. Party scene, laid back, and yeah, I think that it's probably was a really fun event to attend, knowing that what the city of Nashville kind of has become, which is the bachelor party city in the country right now that everybody's trying to get to. So it plays really well into the party atmosphere. I've been kind of really annoyed this week with it all, to be honest.
Really?
I just, all the stuff with Bryson, the US Open was great. I loved watching it play again, but then once they've gotten, I'm a PGA Tour dude. Like, I'm a PGA Tour member. I want the PGA Tour to succeed. I'm part of a broadcast that obviously wants the PGA Tour to succeed. So I don't really want LIV to be like super successful. I'm sorry. Like, that's just so when I see it, I'm like, I don't really get excited about it. But I'm sure there's people that do have the ability to watch multiple tours. It's not for me. I definitely can understand why it's a really fun event to go to. I could see how the fan experience would be great. It's just not for me, man. I don't want it to be successful. I think LIV Golf has absolutely destroyed professional golf the way it is now. Wasn't needed. I think there's plenty of arguments to be made that the PGA Tour was stuck in sand and was never going to change. So there's part of me that's like, hey, if we find on the other side of this a really competitive PGA Tour or just global tour, whatever it is, it's great. I just, as it stands right now, man, I don't see LIV going anywhere, and I see the divide staying there with maybe some LIV golfers playing a handful of PGA Tour events, but I don't see it. I don't see LIV Golf going anywhere. I know that we're talking about how these agreements are going to come to fruition, but there's nothing about LIV folding to me that is imminent. That just seems like it's just going to keep picking up steam, and they're going to keep picking off players, which I don't think it's great for the game of golf.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting in a number of different ways. I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. I mean, I just think that there is an aspect of it that is we want to see all the best players in the world back together, right? I mean, I think that's undoubtedly where we want this thing to go. I think the LIV product is, again, maybe not for either of us, but I'm not trying to yuck other people's yums, to steal a phrase. I think that if you enjoy that, good for you. Like, that's great. I just think when it boils down to it, it's like we miss something not having guys like Bryson on our tour.
Totally.
Now, I think there's an argument too that, like, does Bryson benefit from not being overexposed? Like, do we miss Bryson in a huge way because we don't see him all the time?
He's a needle right now, man. 100%. And I'm not here to argue that he's not. So I think you make a great point that it was a big week for LIV Golf, which for somebody that wants the PGA Tour to be successful, having rain delays at the Travelers and then the shit that happened on the green at 18, it's just like, man, it's frustrating. But I'm a fan of Bryson's. I was so pumped to see what he did at the U.S. Open. It was great for our network. It was great for golf. But then the week after, then I just hear all the I think it's just the sentiment of like, why are we not playing back together? Like wanting to see the LIV Golf Tour go to where it's going to go. Like if it goes to where they think it's going to go, then we're in a worse place than we've ever been in professional golf. Because the PGA Tour is not going anywhere. So.
Right. I think we got to see what's been hammered out. And it's tough for us to evaluate anything because we don't know what it's going to be yet because it's not out there publicly, or at least that I know. You maybe have more insight than I do. I think two things that are interesting on that front. We're starting to see the XFL NFLification of this partnership, and that we saw these live drone tracer shots on the PGA Tour for the first time this week, and that's borrowing from what LIV has done on their broadcast. And I think that stuff is wonderful. I mean, there are a lot of amazing
really cool
things.
I didn't know that LIV was doing it. It looked great on their stuff, and it looked great on CBS.
And I think that's a best case scenario as a fan. It's like we're suffering in so many ways from this divide. It's nice to see ways in which one product is improving the other creatively, and that's a lot of what the XFL, the original iteration of the XFL, did for the NFL. And so I hope we continue to see stuff like that. Someone who's not a fan of the drones, I don't know if you saw the highlight of Rahm's double cross on, I'm not sure which hole it was, but not thrilled with the drones out there. Although his team did win this week.
I want to see Rahm, Bobby McIntyre, Hatton, and throw in another hothead, and let's have them play a match with full drones, like just all the drones.
The drone open. It's like you can't get away from the drones.
Can't get away from the drones.
It's so good. Yeah, I saw that highlight, and his team won this week, but like still not having a great time.
You know what the LIV Golf Tour does not have? They do not have a dump button. The broadcasts don't have a dump button.
Sure don't.
The PGA Tour has a dump button. If you don't know what a dump button is, it's when the player says something that is not deemed suitable by the PGA Tour or the network. So they press a button where all the audio just goes vanished. So when you're wondering when it looks like every time we would have a camera on Rahm after he hit or Hatton, it would just be no audio. It's because this is how they are every single round. Now you're understanding like what these guys are like after every shot they hit. There's no dump button. So it's just it's a free for all.
The commentator reactions to those are pretty hilarious. There was actually one this week at the KPMG Women's PGA. Sarah Schmeltzel, I think, who was just like, F you, Sarah. I was like, oh, she did not like that wedge she just hit. It left about 30 yards short. Let's go there next, because I thought it was interesting to see. I mean, that course looks amazing. Sahalee does, but it also looks like a complete keep you up at night nightmare off the tee. And it was wild to see Nelly play well in the first round, and then second round just completely unravel, and then be emotional on the back end of just like, this is golf is really hard. You could rip off however many wins in a row she did, and then all of a sudden just lose it and miss a bunch of cuts. Lexi was in contention, and she had kind of an up and down Sunday. So I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I was playing in a tournament this weekend. You were busy on the course this weekend. I didn't take in as much of it as I perhaps would have liked to, but just maybe some thoughts on Nelly and Lexi and just the weekend that was for this women's major. Like I think again, takeaway from a lot of these places is like, I love they're going to cool venues like this.
So
that's
sweet.
That's a way
so
to get
sweet.
me tuned in. Yeah, for
Dude,
sure.
The women's tour. Now this is interesting because, the women's game hasn't overpowered golf courses, so they get to go to these sick venues that they're not overpowering. So you go to Lancaster in Pennsylvania for the Open, and then now you're at Sahalee. Sorry,
Sahalee. I also
me.
had a Google pronunciation.
Yeah, Sahalee, and I mean, it would just be an iron fest for guys out on the PGA Tour if they played there. But I was really surprised to see, because I was scrolling through the leaderboard, looking to see like where Nelly finished on Sunday, and I'm scrolling. I'm like, where am I missing her? Because I knew she like was leading after the first round. I had totally missed that she shot 81 in round 2. So I don't. That's really weird, because for a girl that was dominating the LPGA Tour, just to kind of have some just airball days, the U.S. Open and this past week at Sahalee.
Yeah, I mean, tough. Like, the game is tough. And there's some Justin Ray tweets about, like, Lexi Thompson's first 9 holes versus her last 9 holes, on Sunday, of, like, a chance that she could have had to, win another major going out and kind of cap off this year where she's going to, maybe retire, maybe play a much more abbreviated schedule. But I think it speaks to the fact that it's like they're at a really cool, really demanding major venue, and cool to see him go there, and definitely, a ton of interest surrounding that. So Smylie, we're almost an hour and 10 minutes in. Would you like the Old Chatham Hogan recap? Do you want the full breakdown?
Can you give it to me in like 28 seconds?
It's gonna have to be more than 28 seconds.
Okay,
but I'll try to abbreviate it.
We'll settle. We'll settle for 34 seconds.
First I got to say, dude, Old Chatham, they put on such a good event. Their head pro there, John Marino, is the man. He's also I take lessons from. So it was they did everything right this week. So the guy I played with, Craig Johnson, played in the Memorial Pro-Am a couple weeks ago. Played front 9 with JT, back 9 with Akshay Bhatia. He's out there with Akshay Bhatia, and who's walking with Akshay, but Gabe Hurtstedt. I always say his last name wrong, but the short game coach that you talked to, to get some prep for that Akshay interview, right? And so they get to chatting, and Gabe says, what's your address? Like, I'll send you some wedges. Dude,
he's got wedges. Yeah.
These wedges are so sick. I mean, CJ was so dialed in all weekend long. Like, it was the best.
I've chipped with them. They're cool.
They're so cool. Like, the way that the bounce and the ground on them, like, it was the best sales job I've ever seen for a wedge in my entire life. In fact, in our shootout, he hit like a 61 degree for like a 65-yard uphill bunker shot to like 20 feet. That was like one of the sickest things I've ever seen done, especially for like a 70-year-old guy. Like, CJ still plays some dang good golf. So Gabe Hurtstedt, your wedges are awesome. Well done there. And Smylie, I hit maybe the best 3-wood of my entire life in this playoff. I hit like a 280-yard approach shot into a par 5 with water on the left that was a real like night sweat situation. I was like, CJ, what, like, off the tee, it's all true alt shot. Like, CJ, what number do you want for this wedge? He's like, I want you to go for the green. Like, are you sure you want me to go for the green? Like, yeah, like let's let his phrase was, let's let the legend grow. I was like, all right, you're the member, man. Do whatever you want to. Sawed off a little 3-wood, little slight right to left draw lie, hit this thing on a string, almost hold out for albatross.
Ooh.
And then, unfortunately, 2 other guys made birdie on top of us from 30 feet, and we missed the final round of the playoff. But we did. Look, we won our flight. More hardware for the cabinet. Nice to put some flowers in, or maybe drink a couple of beers out of. So,
congrats.
Wasn't all bad this weekend. Won the flight and had a great time out there. And shout out to CJ. Always a fun. Always a good time out there with Craig Johnson at Old Chatham.
You're like right in the middle of your golf season, aren't you?
We're in the thick of it. Yeah, I'm headed to Scotland on Thursday with my dad for 10 days. So that no tournaments over there. That's just. But yeah, we had a tournament that I missed this weekend in Hope Valley. That's our Calcutta, but the syndicate did well. So I'll strike that from the record for the IRS. And then there's a little bit of a lull because it's 5 million degrees right now in North Carolina in the summer. But
it's hot
it's
right
very,
now.
very hot. And then we pick it back up in August and September. So there you go. There's a report. There's a report on the Hogan. Just had to get that on the record for all my guys out there. And I think let's just go out with Ski Mask Boy commenting who will win the British Open. What's your call right now? Who wins the British Open?
I hadn't gotten there yet. I need to keep letting that marinate. Shout out to Gary Boomtower MD though for being in here. That's my boy.
Yeah, it's gonna be Scottie. Is the answer.
Gary Boomtower MD is Big James, by the way, if you didn't know.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you have it. Well, feels like we've done all the content we can do, and my dogs are barking. My son's making lots of noise downstairs, so I think this is the best place.
Tell everybody about our episode this week.
Oh, that's right.
It's already in the hatch.
It's already in the hatch. It's an interesting way to describe it. I don't know.
Down the hatch.
Down the hatch, in the chamber,
in the queue,
in the queue. Did you
in the CUE in the queue?
Did you? Yeah, there's a fun Twitter exchange that we had last night. Johnson Wagner will be joining us on Wednesday. This was recorded last week in the wake of his superstar turn at the U.S. Open, hitting a bunker shot to a foot after Bryson rolled up on him in a golf cart carrying the trophy. So delighted to be sharing that with you all on Wednesday.
Yeah. So we're let's get organized. Let's get our minds right. It's gonna be a big week. SK is gonna head out to the range, figure out where his golf game is, and Charlie's gonna keep moving in. So
we keep moving in. Yeah, thank you for all of your patience with the ongoing tech situation. But I'm gonna close this, and we're gonna build out a studio, and my video is gonna look as good as yours next time I talk to you when I return from Scotland. So that's what we got for you.
All right, get to work. Enjoyed it.
All right, it's time to hit the outro.
Yeah, hit the outro.
Hit the outro. All right, see ya.